The sky was a bruised shade of purple, the kind that warned of a storm too fierce to outrun. The waves rose like mountains, crashing against the hull of the Elysium, a small research vessel carrying a team of 5 scientists and 2 crew members. They had been en route to study a rare marine ecosystem when the storm hit, tearing through the ship like a beast unleashed. The radio had crackled with static, the GPS had failed, and the captain had shouted orders that were swallowed by the howling wind. When the ship finally capsized, it was as if the ocean itself had opened its maw and swallowed them whole. Dr. Evelyn Carter, a marine biologist, clung to a piece of debris as the waves tossed her like a rag doll. She remembered the screams of her colleagues, the cold bite of the water, and the suffocating darkness that followed. When she woke, she was lying on a beach, the sand coarse and gray beneath her fingers. The air was thick with the scent of salt and decay. She was not alone. Evelyn stumbled to her feet, her body aching and her clothes soaked. She scanned the beach and saw 3 others, Marcus, the ship's first mate, Sarah, a geologist, and Daniel, a young intern. They were battered but alive. The island loomed behind them, a jagged silhouette against the storm-ravaged sky. It was unlike any place Evelyn had ever seen. The trees were twisted and gnarled, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The air was unnaturally still, as if the island itself was holding its breath. "Where are the others?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. No one answered. They all knew the truth. The others were gone, claimed by the sea. The group decided to venture inland, hoping to find shelter or perhaps even a way to signal for help. As they walked, the forest seemed to close in around them. The trees were so dense that the sunlight barely filtered through, casting everything in an eerie green glow. The ground was soft and spongy, as if it had never fully dried. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, whispers, laughter, and the occasional distant scream. Evelyn told herself it was just the wind, but the others heard it too. After hours of walking, they stumbled upon a village. Or what was left of one. The huts were crumbling, their thatched roofs sagging and covered in moss. The air was thick with the smell of rot. The village was eerily silent, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. "Hello?" Marcus called out, his voice echoing through the empty streets. No one answered. They explored the huts, hoping to find supplies. Inside one, they found a journal, its pages yellowed and brittle. The handwriting was frantic, almost illegible. Evelyn flipped through the pages, her heart pounding as she read. Day 47, the island is alive. It speaks to us. It whispers in our minds, telling us to stay. We cannot leave. The others tried, but the island took them. It always takes them. Asterisk. Day 52, the shadows move. They follow us. They watch us. We are not alone. Asterisk. Day 60, the island demands a sacrifice. It hungers. We must feed it, or it will take us all. Asterisk. Evelyn closed the journal, her hands shaking. She showed it to the others, and they all felt the same creeping dread. They needed to leave the island, but the journal's warnings lingered in their minds. As night fell, the group decided to stay in one of the huts. They lit a fire, but the flames did little to dispel the cold that seemed to seep into their bones. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them from the shadows. It was Marcus who saw it first. He pointed to the edge of the firelight, his face pale. Did you see that? They all turned, but there was nothing there. Just darkness. Then Daniel screamed. Something had grabbed him, dragging him into the shadows. They heard his screams, but they were cut off abruptly. The group scrambled to their feet, their hearts pounding. They grabbed whatever they could use as weapons, sticks, rocks, anything. We need to get out of here. Sarah shouted. They ran, but the forest seemed to shift around them, the trees closing in. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. Evelyn felt something brush against her arm, cold and slimy. She screamed and ran faster. They eventually found themselves back at the village, though they had run in a straight line away from it. The fire they had lit was still burning, but the hut was gone. In its place was a stone altar, stained with something dark and wet. The whispers stopped. The air grew heavy, and the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. From the shadows, something emerged. It was humanoid, but its form was wrong, too tall, too thin, with limbs that bent in unnatural ways. Its face was a blank mask, but Evelyn could feel its gaze, cold and hungry. "It wants a sacrifice," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. The creature tilted its head, as if considering them. Then it pointed a long, bony finger at Marcus. "No!" Evelyn shouted, but it was too late. Marcus was lifted into the air, his body contorting in ways that made Evelyn's stomach churn. He screamed, but the sound was cut off as his body was torn apart. The creature absorbed him, its form shifting and growing. The others ran, but the island had other plans. The ground opened up beneath Sarah, swallowing her whole. Evelyn and Daniel were the only ones left. Evelyn and Daniel ran until they reached the beach. The storm had passed, and the ocean was calm. In the distance, they saw a boat, a small fishing vessel. They waved and shouted, but the boat didn't seem to notice them. "We have to swim," Daniel said. Evelyn hesitated. The journal's warnings echoed in her mind. The island didn't let anyone leave. But they had no choice. They plunged into the water, swimming as fast as they could. The boat was closer now, and they could see people on board. They shouted again, and this time, someone heard them. As they were pulled onto the boat, Evelyn looked back at the island. The trees seemed to sway, though there was no wind. The whispers returned, faint but unmistakable. "You will come back." Asterisk. Evelyn and Daniel were rescued, but they were never the same. They tried to tell their story, but no one believed them. The island didn't appear on any maps, and the Elysium was declared lost at sea. Years later, Evelyn still hears the whispers. They call to her in her dreams, urging her to return. She resists, but the pull is strong. The island is alive, and it is hungry. And it will never let her go. Years passed, but the island never left Evelyn's thoughts. She tried to move on, to build a new life, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They invaded her dreams, her waking hours, until she could no longer resist. She returned to the island, alone this time. The journey was treacherous, but she felt a strange sense of inevitability, as if the island had been calling her back all along. When she arrived, the island was exactly as she remembered it. The twisted trees, the oppressive silence, the feeling of being watched. She ventured inland, following the same path she had taken years ago. The village was still there, but it had changed. The huts were no longer crumbling, they were intact, as if they had been rebuilt. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the whispers were deafening. Evelyn knew what she had to do. She approached the stone altar, her heart pounding. The creature emerged from the shadows, its form more grotesque than before. It tilted its head, as if recognizing her. "I'm here," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "Take me." The creature reached out, its cold, bony fingers brushing against her skin. Evelyn felt a surge of fear, but also a strange sense of relief. The whispers stopped, and the island fell silent. Evelyn closed her eyes, and the creature took her. The island remains, hidden from the world, waiting for its next victims. The whispers continue, calling to those who are lost, those who are desperate. The island is alive, and it is hungry. And it will never let them go.